right at the top of Kuf Ayin Gimel Amid Aleph. Right? We had just said that although generally the rule is that we're not chayish for nefila, we don't expect that if someone that someone dropped a star and was found by someone else. I should say the other way around. We are chayish for nefila, but we're not chayish for nefila when you have two people with the same name. Right? We had asked the question. We had brought in the Gemara the question if a star says mimcha, can you use it? So we said with that you have a problem of being chayish for nefila. But our Mishnah had indicated otherwise, because our Mishnah said if you have two Yosef and Shimons, they could be goiva, even though maybe one of them dropped it and the other one picked it up. And the Gemara was mechalik, and it said we're not chayish of two people with the same name that it fell from one and the other one found it. That's too many coincidences. It's one thing for someone to find it and just be gaiva from whoever the star is being gaiva from. So whoever finds it can do it. So that we have to be chayish for. But we're not chayish for individuals from two Yosef and Shimons who would fall from one to the other. We have a brisa that's chaylik in our Mishnah, right? Our Mishnah said if you have two Yosef and Shimons, one can't be gaiva from the other, and no one could be gaiva from them, because each one could say it's really the other Yosef and Shimon that owes you the money. But the mashmayis of the Mishnah was, but they could be gaiva from other people if they have a star, even though the person could say, I owe the money to the other Yosef and Shimon, not to you. That we're not chayish for. We have a brisa that says not like our Mishnah, that just like they can't be gaiva one from the other, they can also use a star that's where the Yosef and Shimon is named as the lender if there are two people with the same name. That's not like our Mishnah. Our Mishnah was mashma that you could be gaiva like that. So what is the machlokes about between the Mishnah and the brisa? Whether two people with the same name and they have a star, and one of them has a star with his name on it, whether he could be gaiva. But we're going back to our old machlokes of whether someone who transfers a document from Ruvain to Shimon, for example, whether Shimon could be gaiva with that star, because when he gets the star from Ruvain, he is kind of he's kind of the substance of the star. Oisius means the substance of the star. Can you be kind of just by handing it over? Tanadidan Savar Oisius Nignas Mesira. Our Manda Amar holds that Reuven ben Shimon, or Yaakov ben Shimon in our Mishnah, if he has a star and it says his name on it, even if we're chayshish that it originated with the other Yaakov ben Shimon, since this we don't assume he stole it, we don't assume that it fell, so we assume he gave it to him. So since our Mishnah, our Manda Amar, our Mishnah holds that just one Yosef ben Shimon handing it over to Yosef ben Shimon B is enough for Yosef ben Shimon B to get the right to be kind of with that star. So therefore, on our Mishnah, we say that either Yosef ben Shimon can use the star to be kind. The Tana Bra and the Tana in the Brisa Savar ain't Isius Niknas Mesir. He holds no. If he just handed it over, that's not going to be enough for the new holder of the star to use it to be kaina, and therefore he holds that since we don't know which Yosef ben Shimon was the correct Yosef ben Shimon, and even if this one got it from the other one, we have to be that wouldn't be enough for Yosef ben Shimon B to be able to use a star that was written by Yosef ben Shimon A.
I'm sorry, where were you guys up to?
We're on Kuf Ayin Gimel Amid Aleph. We started right at the top of the Amid, and we're trying to understand machlokes. We're about 5 lines down, so we're trying to understand a distinction between our Mishnah. So we'll just, if you'll bear with me for a second, Rafal, we'll just review again.
Yeah, sure.
Our Mishnah says 2 dinim. It says, I forgot the name. I keep on forgetting whose name it is. Yaakov ben Shimon, Yosef ben Shimon. Yosef ben Shimon, yeah. You have 2 people, Yosef ben Shimon A and Yosef ben Shimon B. Our Mishnah says, first of all, Yosef ben Shimon A cannot use a star that says Yosef ben Shimon on it to be given from Yosef ben Shimon B, or vice versa. Yosef ben Shimon B can't be goyva from Yosef ben Shimon A. In addition, anyone else who has a star that says Yosef ben Shimon owes them money, they can't be goyva, because either one of the Yosef ben Shimons can say, I'm sorry, it's you got the wrong guy, it's the other one who owes you money. But our mission doesn't say anything about if Yosef ben Shimon holds a star that says that someone else owes him money, and the other person saying, I don't owe you money, I owe to the other Yosef ben Shimon. So the mashmais of our mission is that that would work. Even if there are two Yosef ben Shimons in the town, if one of them is holding a star, they could be kind of with him. The Gemara asks, our Gemara over here is asking that there's a brisa that says Svakert. It says that if there are two Yosef ben Shimons, neither of them can be Gaiba. So we're trying to say that question, neither of them can be Gaiba from someone else as a lender. So we're trying to say the nafkamina between our Mishnah and the brisa, that the Mishnah holds Oisius Niknas Mesira, which means that when someone hands over a star, the substance of the star is what he's handing over, and the new owner of the star becomes the holder, and he becomes the balabas on that star, and he could use it to be gaiba. So we're saying over here, when Yosef ben Shimon A produces a star with the name Yosef ben Shimon on it, even if we're chayish that he got it from Yosef ben Shimon B, since it was handed over to him, now he is the holder, and the Mesira was enough for him to be kind of. But the other mandamar, our brisa holds that Isis a niknas Mesira, and Yosef ben Shimon B handing it over to Yosef ben Shimon A is not enough for Yosef ben Shimon A to use that star for him to be kind of the substance of the star. He would have to have a second star saying that our Yosef ben Shimon B are transferring this star to Yosef ben Shimon A, and then the substance of the star will belong to Yosef ben Shimon A, and then he could use it to be guided. So that's why the brisa says we have to be chayshish. We don't know. We're not aware of any other star saying that this star was transferred, and therefore Yosef ben Shimon can't use it to be guided. That's one pshat. Now up to V'iba Yisema, another pshat to Kuli Alma Oisius Niknas b'Mesira. Everyone holds Oisius on Niknas b'Mesira. So then again, the question becomes, what pshat in our Mishnah what's pshat in the Brisa that says that you can't be kaina, Yosef ben Shimon cannot be kaina if there's two Yosef ben Shimons in the city, they can't use it to be gaiva money. Why not? Even if the star originally belonged to the other one, he's holding it now, so let that be sufficient, because he was kainit. The question about whether someone who produces a star, even if we'll say that he might have gotten it from the other person, how do we know that he got it, that the person gave it to him for him to use it? Maybe the person gave it to him as a because he asked him to watch it for him. So the question is whether you need a raya for this. Now, certainly, a person who produces a star, if Ruvain ben Yaakov produces a star, and there's no second Ruvain ben Yaakov, he doesn't have to bring a raya how he got it. His holding on to the star itself is enough. But the question is, in this case, where the person is producing a star, so it's not like metaltalin, it's not like holding an apple, that anyone who's holding an apple is presumed to own it. Of course that's true. But over here, you're holding a piece of paper that's being used to be gaiva. So we're not talking about whether you are in possession of this star. We're questioning whether you have a right to use it. And on that, since over here we have both, first of all, it's not an actual metaltalin, it's just a star. And secondly, there's a second person with the same name. So how do we know that you got it from him, that he gave it to you? He handed it over to you with the intention that you should be kind of with it. So that's the question of whether it's tzarich l'haviraya. Tani dan savar ein tzarich l'haviraya. Our Mishnah holds you don't need to bring a raya, and therefore the fact that this Yosef ben Shimon is producing the star is enough for him to use it to be gaiva, to take money from the person named in the star. The Tana Bra and the Tana of the Brisa savar tzarich l'haviraya. The Itmar. Where do we see Itmar niknis b'Mesira? If you'll say Oisius Niknas Mesir, so that's not the reason for the machlok between the Tanakh, between the Brisa and the Mishnah. So Abaya Amar Tzarich Lahevi Raya over Rava Amar Ein Tzarich Lahevi Raya. It's going to be a machlok. Abaya says you need a raya, and Rava says you don't need a raya. Amar Abaya says Mina Aminala. Where do I see that you have to bring that you need a raya, which would be the shita of the Brisa, the Tanya. Echad mina achen shehashtar chayv yotzei mitachas yodeh. if you have a bunch of brothers who were all Yerush from a father, but one son is holding on to a star that says that Reuven, Shimon, and Levi were the sons of Yaakov, and he has a star saying that Moshe owes money to Yaakov, to his father. And he's saying, yeah, my father gave it to me as a gift before he died. All of Lahavi Raya. He has to bring a Raya. He has to bring a Raya that he received the star, that his father gave it to him in order for him to get it. And it's not something that belongs as part of this state. So my love, huadin lachrini, would this not be the same din by our case, with that two Yosef and Shimon, and we're not certain which Yosef and Shimon it was originally given to, that the person who's holding it, even though he's a muhzik, he has to prove that it came to him b'tyrus, that he should be the kind of it, and not that he just got it as a bikadon, or like in this case by the son, by one of the brothers, that he didn't get it, he didn't take it from the estate. Which, if he just took it from the estate, it really would belong to all the brothers. Rava says no. Shani Achen. You're right that by the case of the Achen, he has to bring a raya. But by Achen, the Shamtu Me'adadi. When the father died, when Yaakov died, there's a free-for-all, and everyone's grabbing things, everyone's going through the drawers, and there's an opportunity for someone to grab things. So over there we have more of a suspicion, and therefore we need a raya. But a case of two Yosef and Shimon's, there's no predisposition to assume that one took it from the other. So over there you don't need a raya. Ikadami, there are those who say the machoikas between Abaye and Rav was slightly different. Amar Rava, Mino Amino, Rava brought this as a raya. The Tanya, if one of the brothers from an estate has a star from that their father's name as the lender, all of lahavi raya, he has to bring a raya. So Rava says, I'll bring you a raya from there. Only over there with his brothers that are grabbing from one another, then we say he has to bring a raya. But anyone else, meaning two Yosef and Shimon, they wouldn't have to bring a raya. So he's bringing a raya the other way around. And what would Abaye answer this raya? Achan it's trichale. No, Adarabba, we have to say by Achan that you have to bring a raya. So Atachamina, Kivin the Shamta Me'adadi, Aim in his Dar Zahiri. Maybe generally, if you have two Yosef and Shimons, they're not thinking about someone taking from each other. Therefore, we have to worry that this guy just took it or he got it, and they're not thinking about the fact that he has to be maknetim. But brothers by the when they're going through the house, everyone has one eye in the back of his head to watch what his brother's taking. So if I cared, a brother is less reason that you have to bring a raya, because they're all on guard for the fact that someone might grab something from the estate. From your smile, Rafal, I assume you're very sympathetic to this argument. You think that
I'm just wondering, the brother that has the star choiv on him, he's the one holding it.
The brother, it's the brothers. One of the brothers has a star that says that Moshe owes Yaakov.
Oh, okay, someone else owes.
A third party, right? He owes money. The question is, does he have a right to be goyed on his own as an individual, or does it become part of the estate, and whatever money is gotten from that note goes into the general estate? So we say he has to bring a raya that it was given to him by his father before his death. If this individual, if Reuben's saying it's my star that I got from my father, from Yaakov, he gave it to me before his death, he has to bring a raya. The Gemara is saying, so Rava wanted to bring a raya from the fact that it was saying only by Achan that's true, it's mashma, but because everyone grabs from each other, so therefore that's the reason why he has to bring a raya. But if it's just two brothers, then you don't have to, I'm sorry, if it's just two Yosef and Shimon's, where they're not grabbing from each other, you don't have to bring a raya. The fact that you're producing it is enough of a raya that it's yours. So Abaye is answering no. It's the other way around. By brothers, everyone's watching what each other's doing. You already have the lawyers involved, and everyone's being very careful about what's mine and what's yours. But case of two Shimon and Yaakovs, they're not as careful. Kamash Malon, they're not. So now we had the Mishnah and the Brisa. Now we have another Brisa that's chaylik on our Mishnah in the other direction. There's a brisa that says that not only can the two Yosef and Shimon's use a star with their name on it to be mitzi from a third party, they could even one Yosef ben Shimon can take from the other Yosef ben Shimon. So what l'chayra? Now the Rashbam had given a reason in the Mishnah, which this Gemara does not discuss, and the Mefarshim ask about it. So we're not going to. I'll tell you what. When we learned the Mishnah, we said the pshat that the Rashbam brings over there, which I hadn't yet seen the Gemara. The Rashbam says the reason why, if there's two Yosef ben Shimons, one Yosef ben Shimon can't produce against the other, is because what happens if Yosef ben Shimon A had borrowed money from Yosef ben Shimon B, and he wrote a star that he gave to Yosef ben Shimon B, so that Yosef ben Shimon B can be gaiva the money that he owes him, and then Einachanami Yosef ben Shimon A paid up the star, and what do you do when you pay up a star? Yosef ben Shimon B had to hand Yosef ben Shimon A the star so he could dispose of it, so he wouldn't be able to use it to be gaiva anymore. But then Yosef ben Shimon A, of course, pays back his lender by turning around and using this exact star that says Yosef ben Shimon owes Yosef ben Shimon. It says, I'm holding it, so now you owe me money. So that's why he said in the Mishnah, if you have two Yosef ben Shimons, they can't lend to one another. They can't use the star to be gaiva one from the other, because you're gonna when he hands over the star, the borrower will then turn around and use the star that he's got, that he's supposed to really destroy, and use it to take money from the lender. But this Gemara says a different pshat. Now this Bryce is saying you could do it. They could be gaiva one from the other. So the Gemara talked about the reason why he says is for a different reason. Why our Mishnah said you can't do it is because it depends on the question of whether you can write a star for a borrower without the lender being there. That means one might say, this is the machlekes we had back quite a few blot ago, that what does it hurt if, let's say, a loiva wants to have everything prepared when he goes to walk into the lender, he wants to borrow money. The lender says, oh, listen, I have to go to my lawyers, I have to write up the stars. So the loiva, in order to avoid being pushed off, he goes and gets the star pre-written, and the loiva can take that upon himself because he's the only one who has to lose. If he loses that star, then he's going to be on the hook for it. But if he's willing to take on that responsibility, he could do so. So there's a machlokes about whether he can do so. Our Mishnah says that you can write a star for a borrower, even though the lender is not there. So then Zimin the Azul Gabi Safra Vasadi will go by the scribe and by the witnesses. One Yosef and Shimon A will go to the cipher and say, write me up a star because I want to go borrow from Yosef and Shimon B. Chavri. And after he writes it and he gets it signed, then he takes that same star. It says Yosef and Shimon is borrowing from Yosef and Shimon. After it was written, he'll go ahead and take it to the person who he claimed he was going to borrow money from, and he'll say, look, I have a star that's signed that says that you owe me money. And he'll just switch which Yosef and Shimon is the lender and which is the borrower. So therefore, our Mishnah says if there are two Yosef and Shimons in this city, they can't borrow one from another. They can't produce a star because it's too easy for them to misuse the star if they write it without the lender there. And the Brisa that said it's not a problem, he's not worried about this because he holds that you can never write a star for a loiva unless the malva is there with it. So therefore, this situation can never come about. Our Mishnah continued. Nimtzil echad bein shtarois of shtar shel Yosef ben Shimon parua. If a lender, for example, the way the Gemara understands it now is, a lender found amongst his papers a receipt saying that the money that was owed to me from Yosef ben Shimon has been paid, shtar shneim paruin, and there's two Yosef ben Shimons, so neither Yosef ben Shimon has to pay him back, right? So Ruvain has lent money to the two Yosef ben Shimons in town, and he has amongst his property, he has a receipt saying that one of them paid him back. Neither of them have to pay him anymore because he doesn't know which one paid him. It's only because he found this receipt. But if he But if he didn't find this reed, he could take. How could this even? Why it doesn't make a difference whether he has a receipt? Our Mishnah had said that no one can take from the Yosef ben Shimon's in town because each one can say it's the other Yosef ben Shimon that owes money. Now, I don't know why this is such a good taina, because if they both owe him money, he should be able to at least get from one of them, or he should be able to get from both of them. Which, assuming, let's say that it's the same amount, why shouldn't he be able to get from both of them? I guess one could say, whoever he brings it to, he could say both of them are owed to the other one. Yeah. But in any case, how is this even an issue? Whether he has a receipt, even without the receipt, our Mishnah had said, if there are two Yosef ben Shimons in town, you can't collect from either of them because they could always push it off on the other. We're talking over here, even though the names are both Yosef ben Shimon, we said Yosef ben Shimon ben Yaakov. In fact, the Mara v'nechsi tavra b'shma deman nekasev. So he's saying if we know who the star was from, then why don't we look at the receipt and see who it is? Like if we were able to, if the original debt we were able to write, one was Yosef ben Shimon ben Yaakov and the other was Yosef ben Shimon ben Esav. So now we look at the Tavra also and see who is the grandfather. The case of the Mishnah comes out where you didn't write the grandfather on the receipt. There's only one receipt that says Yosef ben Shimon. So even though there's two Yosef ben Shimons and he was able to lend to them, and it's not he could be gaiva from them because he has the next generation. One says Yosef ben Shimon ben Yaakov, and one says Yosef ben Shimon ben Esav, but the shaver doesn't. And since the shaver shows that he paid back one of them, he doesn't know which. He can't be gaiva from either of them. Abai says a different teretz. Hachikama nimtza l'loiva ben shteroisav shtarish shel Yosef ben Shimon alai perua. If a loiva, if he's a lender, I'm saying if he's a borrower and he owes money, but he has a receipt saying that I paid back one of these Yosef ben Shimons, then shtar shnei and Peru. Neither of the Yosef ben Shimons can take money. That we said in the mission that even if whoever's holding the shtar could be gaiva, but if both of them are holding shtaris and the loiva has a receipt saying that he paid back, then the loiva can push either of them off. If they come to get from him, he could say, I have this receipt, and you can't prove that the receipt is not for your debt, and therefore neither Yosef and Shimon can be gaiv. So the Gemara said, the Mishnah said, Ketzad Yasa. So what do you do if there are two Yosef and Shimons? We said there's all these restrictions about what kind of contracts, what kind of stars they could enter into. So the Mishnah answered, Yishalshul, you should put the next dar, you should put the grandfather, and in that way we'll know who's who. Zak Gemara, Tana, and if both, so Mishnah said, and if they both have the same grandfathers, then you say which one's a kayin, and the Gemara says if they both are kehanim, then you go further as many daras back as you have to until they have different grandfathers that you could identify them. Zak the Mishnah, someone said to his son, one of my shtaras, before he died, he said, one of my shtaras that I have a whole book of people that owe me money, but one of them they paid me back, and I don't know which one. Shtaras kulam peruin. The son is not going to be able to go over from anyone because he knows that one of them doesn't owe him. See, all of them are sveikas. Nimsel echad sham shnayim. If one of them has, if you find that one of the people has two debts, right? That means he had a whole book of shtaris, and he said one of them is perua, so he can't be going from anyone. But if one person owed two separate debts, hagadol perua v'katan perua, so then you have the receipt is only for one of the two debts, so he only has to pay back the smaller one. The loiva can say I paid back one of my debts, but the son can say, listen, I don't know which one of the things was paid, but I know one of them wasn't. So at least the smaller one, you have to pay me back. Amarava, similar din, shtal chabiyadi perua. If someone says, if someone who's a lender says to a loiva, that the one of a star that I have in my hand that says that you owe me money was paid back, but there's multiple stars. He still has to pay back the smaller one. At a minimum, he owes him at least that much. But if he says instead of shtar lecha biyadi, which means each individual shtar, but he says you owe me money, Perua, and it's paid back. Shtar is kulam Peruan. Then he doesn't have to pay back anything because chayiv could mean all the debts together were paid back. If someone says my sada is sold to you, sada gedayla mechuralai. We don't. He didn't specify clearly enough which sada. He has to give him the largest sada that he has. Sada sheyeshli mechuralach. But if he says the lashon of sada sheyeshli could mean all of his sadas. We say all of his sadas are sold to him. That seems unfair. It doesn't seem. It's just a suffix. Why should he have to give away all of his sadas? And for the Gemara, no. Hasam yad balashtar alach tachmeina. In the first case, where the lender is trying to be moitzi mammon from the borrower, so he has a star. He has to use the star to be gaiva. So he can only take the minimum that is indicated by the star. And therefore, if he says a lashon of chayiv, which could be construed to mean all of the chayvas, we have to be chayshish, then maybe it means all of his chayvas. When someone's selling a sada, it's not yadei atachtaina. We're just not clear what he means. So in such a case, we don't force the seller to give more than what's certainly indicated. Now we're going to talk about a guarantor, and the Mishnah is not going to be very clear. The Gemara later on will give a little bit more explanation of it. So the Mishnah, Hamalves chaver al yadei arev. Someone lends to his friend and he has a guarantor. He has an arev, someone who says, I'm going to pay back, I'm signing on this loan. L'yifra min arev. This is something you'll find out about someday when your kids want to buy houses. You'll find out about the role of a guarantor in the mortgage process. L'yifra min arev. So if Reuven lent money to Shimon and Levi is the arev, now when Reuven goes to get his money from Shimon, he can't take from Levi, he has to take from Shimon. But if the original Arevus, if when Levi became the Arev, Reuven said, I want to make it that I can get from either Shimon or Levi, Yifra ben Arev, then he can go to the guarantor. If they are nechasim to the loiva, benkach la Yifra min Arev. He can't, in either case, he can't be he can't take from the Arev. The Gemara seems to mean, the Mishnah seems to mean, whether he said this lashon almanasha afro or he didn't, he can't take from the Arev. But the Gemara is going to ask on this. Another, so that's one rule that the Rav Shimon Gamliel said to protect a guarantor. Another din that Rav Shimon Gamliel said to protect the guarantor. Ha'arev leisha biksubasa. Someone, Reuven was married to Rachel, and so Reuven has to pay her a ksuba. And in addition to Reuven being on the hook to pay the ksuba, Levi also piped up at the chasana and says, my wedding gift is I'm going to guarantee the ksuba in case anything happens. And now Reuven is divorcing Rachel, so she's entitled to her ksuba. Yadiren hana. The rule is that she has to make a neder that she's not going to have any hana forever, and she makes it in a way that she can't be made. She can't be shail on the neder. She's never going to have any hana from Reuven, from her ex-husband. Because we're worried that this is all a plot by Reuven and Rachel, that they said, listen, we're out of money. We can't pay the kids' tuition. We'll get divorced. I have no money. So now then you, Rachel, go get your money. You'll get the ksuba from Levi, and then we'll remarry. And we'll live happily ever after using his money. And if we can find another sucker to guarantee this new marriage, we'll do it again. But in any case, so Rav Shimon Gamliel said that if there's a arev on the ksuba, we make the we make the husband make a neder that he's not going to have any hana from this woman ever again, so he can't remarry her. So my timer. The Gemara first assumes that this din that we said that you can't go to the Arev as long as there's a loiva, as long as the loiva is there, means just as long as the loiva is around, even if he has no money, you can't go after the Arev, which I was going to ask, it doesn't make a lot of sense. My time, Rabbi Rav Yesta Amitravayu, Gavra Shlimale, Gavra Shlimalach. I promised you, the Arev says to him, as long as I said that, as long as this man is around, you at the beginning when you made this loan, this man was here, and here's the man. You can go get money from him. This is a din of the Parsiim. In fact, the Parsiim are particular to go after guarantors. The other way around, they're very aggressive in going after a guarantor. And over here, we're saying a guarantor can get himself off the hook just by presenting the actual presence of the leiva, even if the leiva has no money to pay. He says, no, what he meant to say is this like a psak that a Persian bezdin would make, which doesn't make any sense. Why would it make any sense to say that because the leiva is present, even if he can't pay, that the malva can't go after the arev? It just means to say you have to first go after the leiva, but you have to first go for the leiva, and then you can go to the guarantor. You can't go after the arev first. But if he uses the lashon, if he says that I could pay from whoever I want, then you can go even to the arev first. Where do we know that our arev is meshubed to pay? Yehuda said this when he asked Yaakov to send Binyamin to him, with him to Yosef. We're getting up to it in the parsha soon. So he says, I'm going to be an arev, I'm going to be a guarantor, and if I don't pay back, you can get it from me. This is not a regular arev, this is a kablanis. There are two levels of a arev. There's someone who just says, I'm going to be a guarantor, and there's someone who says, I'm making myself like a second lender. I'm going to give it to you. If you use the lashon of that, I'm going to, not that I'm guaranteeing, but I'm giving to you the corpus of this loan, then he becomes a kablan, and that has a higher level of shibud. And that you could go to first. So he says, how could you bring a raya from there to the din of arvis? That's not arvis, that's kablanus. Alam Rabbi Yitzchak mehacha. Lakach bigdoiki arev zar, someone who had his garment taken because my garment taken because he became a guarantor for a stranger. And for someone who doesn't know, he was meshabed himself. V'aymer. In addition, it's the pasuk says. Was that pasuk that was in Mishlei? This is the pasuk earlier in Mishlei. So that's when you become meshabed. V'aymer b'niyim arva l'reyacha. My son, if you are meshabed yourself to your friend, takal izar kapecha, and you stuck out your hand, your open hand to a zar, to a stranger, nekeshes, but takal zar kapecha nekeshes, and I think that means that nekeshes beimrei ficha nechade beimrei ficha, and you mixed yourself up, you stumbled basically, and you caused others pain with what you said from your mouth. Asay zois, this is what you should do. Eifai, at least. B'ni, my son. V'inotzo, in order that you should be saved. Ki bos b'kaf reyecha, when you come into the hand of your friend, lech, hisrafes, you should apologize. V'rav reyecha, and make your friend into a lord. So Zakdamar. So what does that mean? Imam and yesh biyade, hatelach pieces. When it says hisrafes, with the eights of what you should do, it says hatelot pieces. You should open up your hand in order to pay him. Hatelot pieces yad. Open up your hand. Bim lav. But if we're talking about the other example, not where you were a guarantor, but rather you made your friend feel bad, harba olav reim. You should get a lot of friends and apologize. So in any case, from this pasuk we see that there is a shibud, that when one has a shibud, if someone's mishabed himself as an arav, as a guarantor, he has to pay it back. Amar Amema. Arav the mishabed machlekes.
So what does he have to apologize for? I mean,
there were two separate things mentioned in the pasuk. The first thing was someone who became an arav, and the second thing was someone who made fun of his friend. He spoke not nicely. So we're saying for the first thing you have to pay back. For the second thing, for insulting a friend, you have to go bring all your friends and apologize in front of them.
Is there a connection between the two things? Like, why are we bringing them
I
down
don't
together?
think so. No, just giving you eitzah taiva. What when you make a mistake? There's two kinds of mistake. You could open your mouth and become an arav, and you could open your mouth and insult someone. And these are the eitzahs of what you have to do. As far as I know, it could be the Marsha gives more understanding. Amar Ameimer Arav the Mishtabed Machlekes Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Yosi. This that an Arav is Meshubed is a Machlekes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yosi. Rabbi Yosi the Amar Asmachta Kanya. According to Rabbi Yosi, who says an asmachta, we always have asmachta. We usually talk about in the context of a gambler, right? A gambler puts down money that a horse is going to win, and then the horse loses. He says, "Listen, I never thought the horse was going to lose." So Rabbi Yosi holds, even though he never expected to lose his money, it's still a kinyan. So Arav Mishabed, according to him, an Arav is a Meshubed. The same way, an Arav is a guarantor. He never expected to have to pay the money. He thought the borrower was going to pay. According to Rabbi Yehuda, who says Smachta like Kanya, then Arav is not Mishabed. We know that Legabi gambling and Asmachta is not Kanya. For Arav Mishabed, but there is still a din of Arav. So how could you say one is tali in the other? Arav is distinct from the question of Asmachta Kanya because there's a certain prestige that a person gets when he becomes a guarantor. He feels like a big guy, everyone's looking up to him, and therefore he is even though he doesn't expect that he's going to have to pay, but even so it's worth it for him, and he's kind of. Okay, we'll stop over here, and we'll get back to the Mishnah tomorrow. Shkoyach. 6:30 a.m. tomorrow.